welcome to another episode of the Lone Recruiter Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Clemenson, and today we are joined once again by Charmaine Keegan. Charmaine, welcome.
Hi, Brett. How you going?
I'm fantastic. The rain has stopped and the sun has come out, so always a good sign. If you've followed this podcast, you've heard Charmaine on here before. She's not in recruitment, but she has an unbelievable ability to train sales. And I'm a huge believer in getting outside of recruitment advice and support and training around sales, because there's a big wide world out there. And if we get too insular in recruitment specific stuff or recruitment specific lanes, I think we're missing out on some great opportunities. So hence, Charmaine comes in. She has trained a lot of recruiters, it sounds like, and but also technical sales, corporates, governments, you name it. She's trained them in the sophistication and the art of sales. So she's here today. She has loads of content, and again, we struggle to go, what do we want to talk about? But we're spitballing ideas, and the one we've landed on is how to articulate your value. And as recruiters, right, we've got some tricks we have in terms of like, oh, here's a CV, do you want to see it? And that's one way to try and sell something. But when you're in a room and perhaps you're going for a bigger account, or you're going for a panel, or you're going for somewhere where you need to be a little bit more, okay, here's the value I add. How are you articulating that? Because I think this is a hugely undermined sort of resource that we could tap into today. And Charmaine, why do people get this wrong? Let's start with that. Why do people get articulating their value wrong?
Oh, great question. Brett, thanks for having me back. I think they get it wrong because, number one, they haven't done any homework on what their value is. So, the old basics, features and benefits. Why would someone come to me? What is it that I offer that no one else does? What's my unique selling points? What's my points of difference? What is it that even if everyone's the same as, what is it that I offer? I'm the person who makes the difference. I'm the difference that makes the difference. What is it that I bring to the table for a client? So I think, number one, people don't spend enough time, thinking about their own value and worth in general, their value and worth. It might be because they're floated into recruitment somehow and they feel they've got there from just talking. So they haven't maybe spent enough time thinking and being present and going, well, actually, why does someone come to us? And so that's one part, Brett. And I think the other part is then practicing how to explain that to a client. So we call it how to land your compelling message with clarity. And that could be an elevator pitch or whatever it might be. It's like 1,000 different ways that you're able to say what you do and how it's going to help somebody. But I think the very first thing is people end up, because of the lack of practice and because of the lack of them knowing, they end up sort of just spraying and praying and just talking at and thinking, if I talk enough and talk a good enough job, then the client's going to buy into me. And on that note, we talk a lot about different personality styles. And there's a certain personality style which we'd call, which is introvert and high task orientated. So on the extended disc, for those recruiters that have done anything like disc or extended disc or Harman Brain or Values Myers-Briggs, any of those, they're very, very similar. But extended disc is DISC. The C's, high introvert and very task orientated. So you take a recruiter, high I, extrovert, people, and you match them with a high C who doesn't want the chit chat. They just want to know, bottom line, why should we come to you? And they don't want fluffiness. They don't want it feels good. They're not into feeling. They're into facts, figures, logical, structure, fear adverse, risk averse. They need to know that there's an order and sequence to dealing with this consultant and they need to know where they're going. So a lot of recruiters come unstuck when they're dealing with high Cs. So when you add that little bit coming unstuck, because they want to chat to them and everything, and the high C's not chatting at all. So you match that, potentially a client that sits over there in that high C box as their strongest personality type. You match that with the rep not knowing their value proposition. And what you end up is the rep just being too loose, too flighty, too feeling, it feels right to do this. Come with us because others have. The high C just wants, well, who has? Where's the evidence? How many? How many did you get over across the line? How long did that take? What did that cost somebody? And they're asking direct questions, which are not rude. To a high eye, they might feel they're rude. They're not rude. They just want you to keep to facts. They want you to keep off the fluidness of being, it feels okay, come with me. So for a recruiter that often sits on this, usually, of course, 99% of your listeners will be extrovert people that you drop anywhere, they get on with everybody. So you add that with them not understanding their value proposition, and you can see it can unravel. Yeah, they need to be practiced on what their value proposition is. They need to know what their value proposition is.
But I don't think a lot of people put effort into that. And value isn't what you do. I mean, what you do is what you do, right? Like and what I mean by that is, if you're a recruiter, you're going to recruit. That's not value, is it? Like it's saying the obvious. So when you talk about value, like let's break that down, because if you're a recruiter and you go, oh, what's your value? If you're in front of a client, they say, what's your value? What's your proposition? What's whatever? And they go, oh, we recruit, and we're experts in what we do. We specialize. We've been around for a while now, and we've got a good database. They've heard all that, right?
Yeah.
So when you think of value, like what are the things you would like to see recruiters referring to more so? Is that something you can answer? Maybe not.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I'm going to break this down into two things. One is value proposition, and one is value. So in fact, off my own material here, I'm just going to read out our definition for what is a value proposition. Okay. Yep. It is a promise of the value to be delivered. It is the main reason a prospect should buy from you and not your competitor. And the value proposition explains how your product, solution, service, their service, solves the problem or improves something or increases something or helps something. It talks about what specific benefits the customer's going to expect from coming on board with you. And it talks about why customers should come to you and not your competitor. So that would be called a value proposition, VP we call that, and what it explains. So that's one thing, Brett. The other thing is value, which I'm going to separate, if that's okay. Yep. And when I talk about value, this is what I mean, Brett. So, your recruiters on here, they can have top clients, right? How do they look after their top clients? So they just call them up, having a chat every now and again, go out for a coffee. That's cool. That's cool until the client's got no time. What the client needs to see is your phone number come up and want to answer it. They want to see your email pop up in their inbox and want to open it, because it adds something to them every time. So what can you do to add value at every touch point with your client? Could you, for example, take your top 20 clients, or 3, whatever it is in your business, and just let's make this simple. This is what we do, is what we teach other people. We have a calendar and we go, when was the last time I reached out to these 35 people in April? Have we added any value? And we don't do it all the time. So some people we call every other month, some are every quarter, some are every week. That means jumping on LinkedIn, and we dedicate 3 hours to go through every one of those clients and go to all their posts on LinkedIn and their company posts on LinkedIn. And we mix up commenting with personal messages to them, with all sorts of bits and pieces. But how are we adding value? So our touch point is adding value. Oh, John, I noticed that you post a lot about your new member of the team that we recruited for, or not, doesn't really matter actually. Here are our 5 ways to induct people. Now, I'm sure your recruiters have got they're armed, I'm sure, with lots of things they can add. And often, Brett, they give it away for free too soon on. But what we need to have is, they're about to recruit, or they've taken one of your team members on, then what happens? Do they get a 1-pager on the tips to recruit, the tips to onboard? Do they get a 3-pager on how to ensure that the team member's motivated? Do they get from you an extended disc you run on that client? Hey, this will be helpful in terms of their manager managing them. What do you add when the client's on board? That's when the client's on board, which makes that client go, you know what? I've just got to go with these guys, because they just keep adding. They're just adding value all the time. So that's what I mean by that, adding value. And that of course, is in the context, Brett, of when you've got a client on board. But what about you haven't got a client on board? Well, you can still have your top 20 prospect hit list. And again, are you adding value? Like, I'll give you a great example, right? How there's a local real estate around here that adds value. So every year on the anniversary of us buying our house, he sends a letter that's to me and my husband. Like, weirdly, he left my name off last time, so we'll have to have a chat with him about that. But it's to me and my husband. And it says, can you believe it's been 15 years since you bought that home? And then he gives us a card for a voucher for a local coffee, right? And it's a personalised note, how the kids from him. Now, I'm going to tell you, Brett, he did not sell us the house. And he did not sell a previous house that we've got. He's not even connected with the house. But he's there, front of mind, twice a year doing different things that lets us know when you need to buy a house, I'm the person who's come straight to your mind. And he has. And we've not looked to sell, but I reckon I recommended him at least 30 times because of the little way he's adding value. He didn't. So what I'm saying to your recruiters, they don't have to have even placed somebody. How are they showing that they are the experts in their field, the authority in their field, the subject matter experts, the trusted advisors? What are they doing constantly on LinkedIn that mixes it up? Not constant, they've got to mix it up on LinkedIn. Think of your audience and work backwards, reverse engineer it. But tips, short things, GIFs, downloadables, polls, whatever, mix it up. But also when you send an email or make a phone call, are you actually adding or are you asking? Because the coffee thing, that's okay for some, but what's going to happen is if they're busy, they won't answer you. And so you've got to step up your game and add value for each. So one, know your value proposition, practice your value proposition. Practice your features and benefits, your points of sale. Practice it inside out. Practice it so if you do get stuck in an elevator, you've got that compelling message you can land with clarity. That's one side. And Brett, the other side is making sure you add value at every touch point with a client.
I like it.
Thanks.
Have we covered that? How do we articulate our value? So I asked you how we got it wrong, how people get it wrong, and I think we've talked about that definitely. The other part I wanted to ask was around how do people pitch their value to a client? I think we just covered that. Is there anything else we need to add on this topic that we can compress into 10 minutes?
I think people forget that what they say generally can be quite boring because the way it comes out their mouth, they've got no enthusiasm left in what they say. So they need to practice it. Now, I work with John Yeo from TEDx Melbourne. He's one of our trainers on our team, and he's an incredible guy, and he's had that license for 14 years. And so I've got a lot of other trainers that have been teaching for 30, 40, 50 years presenting, and they all say the same thing. It's not about you. It's about the client. We're also the same thing. It's not about you. It's about your audience. If you are practicing your pitch constantly, then when you're with a client, it needs to be relevant to that client. I know this is basic, but we tend to forget. It's got to be relevant to that client. And the only way to make it relevant, of course, is to ask questions first, Brett, to ask about them first, to have the spotlight on them. And then you go, God, those 4 pictures won't work, but this one now will. And to make sure that you're so well practiced that you haven't got to think. The thing is, if you're not practiced, your brain goes, what do I say? What do I say? What do I say? Then you're not present anymore because your brain is on what do I say? But if you're so practiced in, say, 30 different ways and start off with one, and then you might go next week 2, and you practice it out loud 30 or 40 times each one. So now you've got a plethora unconsciously. You can pull one out at any point. Now your full focus can be on that client, collaborating. Your intent is to help to understand. You're there understanding them. You want to help them. You're partnering and collaborating. They're the key words, right? You've got confidence and certainty because you know your value proposition, so the client can see some with confidence. And now your full focus is on them. And at the right time, you can pull out that evidence. Because I think people don't write down what theirs are. They don't practice it. So I think that's the first problem. They don't really go. If somebody said to me, why would I come to your recruitment business rather than another? I don't think most people would actually know what to say. They'll end up saying, because we've got a big database. You go, well, so is the other. Oh, because we're experts, or so are the others. So I think we've got to drill down to help the person go, well, actually, why did the others come to me? That's a good way of asking it, Brett. Why have the last 5 clients come to me? What is it that I offered, that no one else did? Did I just work a bit harder?
And my key takeaway here is to stop and think, because a lot of the time people walk into these things and just think, I'll just fly by the seat of my pants. Recruiters are guilty.
Yes.
Right? And I think a great example here is people who are trying to build a desk or build a market from scratch. So a lot of recruiters that change companies, go out on their own, whatever. There's a lot of building that goes on. Okay, so what if you're in day one, right, and you've got no clients, no track record? What are you selling? You're probably thinking about the company or whatever. But things that come to mind is I've been in this situation before. I'm like, I'm building this desk up. I've got a meeting. What's my pitch? because I've got nothing to lean on that suggests that I'm, going to be successful. So, in taking a pause and thinking about it, I came up with, well, all the other agencies that are supplying people for this company are going to have other clients they can't headhunt from. But because I'm new, I've got no allegiance to anyone. Therefore, I'm going to be able to headhunt from all your competitors. And I was like, it was that moment to sit down and go, what value can I bring, even though I've got none? And I found actually the magic bullet. So if the key takeaway today is pause, just write down, like, what is the value right now? And the other thing I picked up on what you said is that it will change from client to client. It's, what are their pain points? What are they asking you for? Listen, and then solve, because
a lot of people have the same pitch. It sounds laborious, doesn't sound exciting, and it's not relevant to the client. And I'm going to add there, to jump on what you've just said, the biggest skill anyone can have is self-awareness. And let's just say you're building up a desk and you've got no clients. If that client knows that you're in fair state, then that will come across. But if you go, I've got no clients, it doesn't matter. I know I can look after this client. And I'm going to tell you a quick story. I helped a company pitch for the, I shouldn't say it out loud, but it doesn't matter, it was 12 years ago. It's for the Greens, right? And they ended up pitching for the Greens business, these two guys. They were wonderful guys, but they weren't in the business of advertising, and they just somehow got on the pitch. And they found out afterwards at the end, they won it. They found out afterwards that they were wrapping number 5. They weren't going to get it. They're going to go with the incumbent. And the reason they got it is because I coached them, went in and coached them and said, stop trying to be up against Saatchi and Saatchi. Stop trying to be up against those guys. What do you have that they don't have? And they gave a damn and they cared. And their opening pitch was, all we care about is you. We've done this homework and we think we can help here and here. We know where we are in our lane. We know where we can't help, but we think we can do this, this and this. And they made it all about them. So the whole meeting was about them. And afterwards they won it, and they said, and I told them if they don't win, to say, that's okay, who'd you go with? It would help us to know next time how we can improve. And congratulations, I'm sure they do a good job. They were told to say that sentence. And if they win, not to sound surprised, and to go, well, now as far as we're concerned, the real work starts, right? So they won it, and they went, oh, and now as far as we're concerned, the real work starts. And they said, you've won it because everyone come in, they were arrogant. Everyone else was arrogant, and they didn't do the homework. And people become lazy. They think, oh, everyone's going to come to us. We're the biggest recruitment in in Gosford or whatever. No, and people don't like that. They don't like people being arrogant. So there's a difference between being confident, have certainty and caring, and being arrogant. So I just want to land that as well.
I love it. Again, I'm going to wrap that one up, but if you got any value out of Charmaine, she does provide in-house training, customized training for whatever you want. So if you're a manager, you own an agency, or you want one-on-one coaching, highly recommend having a chat with Charmaine and seeing if she can add value, because this is the tip of the iceberg. I've got her in because she's great. I'm hoping that she comes back again, and I just keep getting this brilliance out of your mind. Charmaine, thank you once again.
Oh, thank you, Brett. I love you inviting me on. I appreciate it.
Guys, like, share, subscribe. It helps us grow. As always, have an amazing day, and may all your deals come true.